Joining us now, Paul W. Downs, writer, director, producer, co-creator, and co-star, not to mention Emmy winner, six-time Emmy Award nominee, including two just this month for Outstanding Writing, and Best Supporting Actor in the HBO Max series Hacks. Paul, good to see you again. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations again.
Thank you, Ross. Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Take me back to, it was just like a week ago. Take me back to that morning. It's always an interesting morning. You've been through it before. Here it comes again. It never gets old. What is that morning like? What happens? How does the call come in for the
Well, we actually watched the stream. The past two cycles we were traveling. We were with family on the East Coast, but this time we were home in LA. I live in Los Angeles, and my wife Lucia, who co-created the show with me, and with our best friend Jen Statsky, we watched the stream live. They didn't announce every category live, but we did hear a bunch of them, and it's always kind of the same. It's nerve-wracking. It's thrilling. I mean, it can be thrilling. Luckily, it was thrilling for us, knock wood. But it was great. It was really, it was actually a shock, and it is always a shock because you always hope that you and the people that work on the show get recognized. But for the amount of people that make this show to get recognized is like such a dream. It feels so good for all of the people that help make it what it is.
it's such a brilliant show. And what I want to do for people who've never seen it, give us the premise, how Hacks came to be, and how you guys created it.
So Jen, Lucci, and I were on a road trip to Portland, Maine from Boston, where we were filming a segment of a Netflix special that I did. And Jen and Lucia were there, sort of punching up and writing jokes for me. And on that road trip, we were talking about female comedians that we love, who we felt like never got the same due that a lot of their male counterparts did, and about how, as three people that came up in the alt comedy scene in New York, how there's this idea of cool comedy versus, not cool comedy, and how that's kind of not great. But anyway, we're talking about women like Lucille Ball and Phyllis Diller and Joan Rivers, and also other show business people like Debbie Reynolds and Elaine May. And we just started thinking about, wouldn't it be cool to do a show about a woman like that who comes to be understood through the eyes of someone like us, a younger comedy writer? And so we pitched the show Hacks, which is about Deborah Vance, who's this larger than life Las Vegas stand-up comedian and diva who is forced to hire a young writer named Ava Daniels. And their relationship is sort of a dark mentorship and complicated friendship. And the story is really about how these two people who are sort of outside of the entertainment industry, they're sort of sequestered to Las Vegas, how in working together and coming to understand each other, set themselves on a path to redemption, both for their career, but also for their soul.
And at some point, as you started to cast this, we'll get to Gene Smart in a second, but
Mhm.
the parts that were going to be played, um, was there a large group? In fact, let's get to Gene Smart now. Was she the original pick, or did you have many in mind?
So we talked about we first had that road trip and that conversation in 2015, and we didn't pitch the show till 2019. So we were talking about it on and off for like 4 years, and in that time, we didn't have anyone specific in mind. She was kind of just this amalgamation of people in our mind. And then when we did sell the show to HBO Max, we started talking about who we wanted to play it. And the truth is, you wanted someone who was a believable stand-up, who could land a joke, who knew how to do that. And that's not easy, but also
Mhm.
someone to get underneath and play sort of the more heartfelt, touching moments with equal measure. And for us, the list wasn't incredibly long, and Gene Smart was at the top. So we
And
sent,
go ahead.
huh?
Go
No, I
ahead.
was just, so we sent Gene the pilot script, and we met with her, and she really, thank God, responded to the role and to the story. And she said to us, I always in my sliding doors alternate path, I've always thought it would have been cool to be a stand-up. And when she was 12, apparently she dressed up as Phyllis Diller for a Halloween party. And she's like, this is weirdly checking so many boxes for me. So we were very lucky that the stars aligned.
And as it came about, there were elements of a Lucille Ball or Joan, like Joan Rivers. There
Right.
are all of those elements in there. And then that young character, Hannah
Mhm.
Einbinder. How
Yeah.
did she come into the mix?
So we started casting the show in 2020, and she actually did a live. We weren't there for it, but she did a pre-read for the casting directors.
Uh-huh.
And we saw a tape because at that point we were doing some in-person casting, but very shortly thereafter, the pandemic hit. And so we stopped doing in-person casting, but we couldn't get her tape out of our head. She was just, there was something about her. We had never seen her before. Our casting directors had never had her into their office before, but she was so good and so natural and watchable and different. She was just different. So we did a couple callbacks, and then ultimately she did a screen test with Gene still during the pandemic. So they were like 15 feet apart with plexiglass between them. But she just blew us away, and she has only gotten better and better.
Oh, I agree with everything you just said. Now, the commonality, the glue, if you will, that keeps them together or brings them together is you. You're cast as the agent. And
That's right.
if anybody has an agent, and I've had agents, this is a brilliant part. How did you wind up casting yourself?
I thought you were going to say the glue that connects them is comedy, but you're right. Technically, it is me.
Yep.
But
Well, it is
well,
comedy.
when we were writing the show, we did know that. So my character, it sort of is a legacy uh, person, a little bit of a nepo baby. His father like founded the agency and had Deborah Vance as a client for many, many years, and so he inherited her when his father passed away. So he has young clients, and then he also has this diva. And we always knew we needed to get them together somehow. So we thought, well, it would work if they had the same, agent or manager. But we thought, well, how the heck would these two people have the same person on their team? And so that's why we came up with the story of his father. But we always kind of envisioned me playing it. I started, I studied theater in college, and I did sketch and improv in college and at the UCB, which is the Upright Citizens Brigade in New York when I graduated. But
Mhm.
I always wrote for myself in addition to, auditioning and performing in other people's work.
But bring us back there too. You're an improv guy. I mean, that brings you back to Duke University. I
Yep.
love the fact that the improv group there was DUI.
Duke University Improv. Oh
Improv,
yeah.
and there's probably another DUI group there too. But um, that came natural to you. Did your folks uh, put you or give you a head start into that world? How did that happen?
You know, I my family, I feel like I get my sense of humor from my family, and my um even my grandfather was really funny. And I don't know, there's just something about, I think growing up in a house there were a lot of laughs, and so I always liked comedy.
Mhm.
But I think, I was also like an eccentric weird kid, and comedy was the thing that made me feel connected to people. If you share a sense of humor, or if you could make them laugh, it was a way to feel a little less weird. And so I always liked comedy, but I always wanted to be an actor. My parents were really supportive. They took me to auditions in New York for commercial work when I was like 8 and 9 because I really
Mhm.
wanted to do it even then. Never booked. And my mom used to say that, well, you have perfect diction and they're looking for kids with a little bit of a lisp because it's very cute. So that was at least her excuse for why I wasn't booking. But yeah, so I think they also probably put me in an improv class when I was before even high school, and I really liked it. I think my ADD helped, my mind jumped from thing to thing to thing, so it came a little bit naturally to me to do improv.
The ADD would seem natural on the improv, but would not seem natural for the writing. And you are the consummate writer. When did that start? How did that start?
I wish that had started sooner. In high school, I was writing characters. I think I always loved watching SNL, and I knew that a lot of those, a lot of the people on Saturday Night Live wrote for themselves, created and developed characters for themselves that then became part of the show. And so I used to write characters and do skits in high school. And then in college, I was a part of a sketch group in college, but I wish I had realized sooner how important writing narrative, how important writing film and television would be, and had taken a swing at that because I didn't do that until I met Lucia, my wife, who went to film school and was like, we need to start writing film and television. And she was right.
Which brings me to that relationship. How did you and Lucia meet? You're from Jersey, right?
I'm from Jersey. Yeah.
She's from
She's from Massachusetts. She grew up in Western Mass.
And how did you guys come to meet?
So we met in a level one improv class, which is like it's sort of like graduate school for clowns, you know. It was right after we both, it was the month pretty much we graduated college. And weirdly, I was just saying this to her the other day. There's so few people I remember meeting for the first time. Actually, it happened to us recently, so I do remember meeting you for the first time. But I remember the moment I saw her, and we became well, we started actually before we ever started dating. We were on improv teams, and we started writing together. And then it was when we were starting to make videos and make shorts that we then started dating. But it was really her who said, you know, we should be putting stuff online and we should like, as fun as improv was and as great as it was to do a solo show at the UCB, she made the good point that, you know, 150 people a night can see it. But if we put something online, you know, a million people could see it by the end of the week if you did something really good. So we started making YouTube shorts, and that's what got us really our first professional work.
You put the YouTube shorts on and somebody saw it. Is that what got you to Broad City?
Well, actually, the first thing we put a short on, and I did get an audition for SNL. I screen tested for SNL
Personnel.
when I was like 24.
Hmm.
I hadn't made an audition tape, which is what people do. They make character and impression
Right.
compilations. I hadn't done that. I had put up a video, and I got contacted to come in. So but doing that work is how we met Abby and Alana, who were the creators and stars of Broad City. They were doing a lot of the same stuff. They were making web shorts. Lucia started directing those web shorts. I was in one of them. And then when Comedy Central picked it up, Abby and Alana said, "Hey, you know, we were just great friends and like-minded and doing the same stuff." And they said, "Would you write for the show?" And we said, "Absolutely." So that was our first job in TV.
Your first foray.
Yeah.
So you guys really have grown together, put the show on together. Along comes Jen Statsky with you guys, and
Mhm.
it's a trio. How
Yeah.
difficult is this series? You're going into your fourth season now.
Yeah.
Um, how difficult post COVID, post the SAG after strike? It's got to be difficult. In what ways are the challenges? What ways do they arise?
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge during the strike was just all of us wanting to finish the season because we it happened midway through season three, and Gene Smart had a cardiac issue, so we had taken 12
Right?
weeks. So we had all of these starts and stops because we came back up when Gene was ready to work. I would say like a week before the strike, and then the strike happened, and it was just that was really hard because we all really wanted to finish the work and get it out to the world. And you know, you become like a family with your cast and crew, and so we kept getting split up. So that was challenging. And I think as we continue to make the show, the thing that's challenging is we just want it to be better every year. You know, as I mean, we love watching things. We love film and television. And so our favorite things are the things that we find draw us in more every season and get better and better. And we want, and you know, that's something hard to strive for, but that's the thing I think that's the biggest challenge is keeping it relatively the same so you deliver people what they have come to love, but
Right.
also surprising them and surprising yourself, making it better and making it funny.
In this series, in your role as the agent, because you mentioned Nepo baby, you have a Nepo baby as your assistant.
Yes.
What a brilliant role she's in. Tell us about her.
So Meg Stalter plays Kayla, my assistant, and she is absolutely brilliant. She's so funny.
Mhm.
She's somebody who also came from the New York like alt comedy scene. She started in Chicago, doing comedy, then New York. I met her doing a stand-up show. She and I were on the same show one night, but we loved her really specific. She used to do characters just on Instagram, front-facing videos, and she would do this character that was like both really or characters, I should say, that were really bold and ballsy, but also a little bit like stuttery, stumbly, nervous. Like she had this really beautiful thing of being both like totally self-assured, but also bumbling in a way, which was kind of what we had been envisioning for Kayla. And we thought Meg is perfect for it. We really, as we continued to write and rewrite the pilot, we kept thinking about her. And she had to audition for the show, but there was nobody else that could do it quite the way. She brings a dynamic that nobody else could bring to the
Oh,
part.
she's terrific, and guys seem to be growing her. She's still stumbling
Yes.
and bumbling, but she's growing and she's moving ahead. A word on your being an agent. How much of your role
Mhm.
is patterned after your agent?
Well, it's so funny. I always say to them because they're like, I think they appreciate that I don't play some like conniving Ari Emanuel style snake.
Hi, babe. How you doing? I'll be out. Yeah,
Exactly,
not
exactly.
that.
Like, hey, babe, or like, I don't, yeah, like the entourage style thing. Um, so I, I don't base it on anyone in particular, but I have to say that my experience with agents is that they all care about film and television, and they love the industry. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? I haven't had an experience with anybody that is like what I think you might normally think of when you see like a slick person in the industry. So in a way, it is based on all of my experiences, but I don't draw on anybody specifically, to be honest.
The world of television and film has changed so much. Could could you have produced hacks for network television back in the day, or even today? Could that could that be a network television show if it was not on the HBO Max platform?
That's a great question. It's so hard to say because I don't even know if we could. I don't even know if we could sell hacks to a streamer today. Like comedy is so hard to stick the landing, and so I think less and less people are taking risks on comedy. You're just seeing less and less comedies, and you're certainly seeing less and less comedies that go for 3, 4, 5 seasons. A lot of them are on for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 seasons. It just feels like there is a crisis in comedy, which I think is so important for our discourse, our cultural discourse, our cultural literacy. Like, comedy is really important in my mind, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. I don't know if we could even sell it now because I know of like a lot of things that have either been passed on or pilots that haven't been picked up or people having trouble selling. So in terms of it being on a network, I certainly think, I mean, I think Jean Smart is such a star that she's had great success on network television, and I'd like to think we could make it for a network, but it's really hard to say. It does take a lot of hard work, but it takes so much luck to have the timing right, have the right people believe in it, and say, we'll take a risk on this because if it works, I think comedy can be something that anybody can watch and really unites people. But if it doesn't work, people don't watch it. And I think the riskiness is something that even, especially post-strike, people are afraid.
And take us back into the writing room, into your minds, your collective minds of what happens now. You're moving into season four. Um,
Yeah.
the show basically leaves on Jean Smart's character, on Deborah Vance, getting the show, getting her finally getting the lady of late night. Okay,
Yes.
you break for what is a little bit of time for the summer. Now you're back. You're thinking as you go cross country, as you vacation. What are you thinking? How does that work? Who is it?
Yeah. Well,
Is it Jen? Is it Lucia? Or do you sit together and say, we're going to take Deborah to this? How does that work?
we knew where the season was going to go a long time ago because when we pitched the show, we pitched 5 seasons, and then that could always change. But we pitched essentially the thrust of every season, so we've known the thrust of this season from day one. So Jen Lucci and I kind of knew that. We have a writers' room of brilliant writers who help us break story, and we figure out the ins and outs of each episode. But we kind of know every year the target, or at least the direction we're going for the end. We knew the end of season 3, the first week of the writers' room. And so it was so helpful to have that to build towards and to
Right.
lay sort of Easter eggs for. But yeah, she's gotten the show, but even though it was like a Herculean task to get that job as a 70 something year old white woman, the fact is that it's nothing compared to launching a successful show that stays on the air. So she actually has the biggest task ahead of her in season 4. Season 4 is almost the most juicy in terms of like the lift, the stakes for her.
And who does what? Is it your who does what back in that writing room? And if you got more writers than the three of you, who says we're taking her, she's going to get nicer. She's not a nice person. By the way, both she and Hannah Einbinder's characters, they're not nice people,
Yeah,
and somewhere in there is a heart, which I guess you guys
that's
worked on.
right. Well, yeah, we always think of it as like they can be rude, but never mean.
Yes.
They're not mean-spirited, they're not unkind, but they can be rude. And, it takes a certain amount of sharpness and edge, I think, to like really, especially for someone like Deborah, to get to the level of fame she's gotten to. You got to have a hardness. You've got to have a little bit of toughness and grit. So we do think of them as, yes, they're not the sweetest, nicest characters, but they are human. And hopefully you can see all of the indignities that someone like Deborah has suffered. You understand why she's a little bit hardened, and I think that's something that
But
Jean plays so well. She makes the character so likable.
But do you take the ideas from the writers, or the three of you say, you know what, we're going to do? She's gonna. I don't know what. I'm making this up. She's gonna get in trouble with the network president again. She's gonna have an illness. She's gonna whatever. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me because the lawyers will come and pluck you out of here. But the question is, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, we all break story together. Like I said, Jen Lucci and I kind of do a little bit of the skeleton of the season, and then we come together with the writers to figure everything out. And the truth is that the best idea wins. Doesn't really matter whose idea it is. If we spark to something, then we all pitch on it. And oftentimes you forget where the idea originated because it's almost like a snowball. And as everybody adds an idea or a twist to it, we add the turns. That snowball rolling down that hill gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's an episode of TV. And it's almost hard sometimes. I will say certain people, like Jen, is really, really good at a punchline.
Mhm.
I think my forte is character dialogue that's specific, but isn't necessarily set up punchline format. Lucia is good at all of it, but she's very good visually, I think, because she directs most of the series, that she's really good at writing things that have a visual style to them. So I think we all have our forte, but the truth is that we do it all. Like there'll be times that I'll pitch a setup punchline, or Lucia will pitch a very specific line of dialogue, or even Jen will think, this is I'm envisioning a scene where she's just going through her closet and there is no word, but she's doing X, Y, Z, and that's just an example of something that's never
Or will
happened.
the
But
characters, will Gene or Hannah ever give you an idea?
you know, so Meg and I come from improv and sketch. Most of the other people, like Jean has done a lot of theater and obviously a
Yeah.
lot of film and television. She's pretty devoted to the text. I mean, every once in a while she can ad lib. I mean, she can absolutely do it, but it's not, I don't think, her go-to. Hannah, a little bit more. She'll do a little bit of ad-libbing, but I would say the most amount of improvisation in the show is from me and Meg.
What did the SAG after strike do to you guys? How did it affect the show? How did it affect you personally?
Well, I mean, the one thing it really did was it made me become more engaged with the union. I was more involved than I had ever been because I really, and I mean, it's like, what can I do? But I was like, I want to help get back to work. I really wanted to get back to work. And I really wanted to understand exactly why we were striking and what we were trying to achieve. And so in a way, it made me more involved than I had ever been, which was a positive. I also got to see actors that, unless you're working with them on set, you might not see when you're walking the
Mhm.
picket line. So in that way, it was very, I don't know, it was sort of a moment of feeling very connected to people in the union, but it was also really hard because, not only were we not working, but our cast and crew weren't working. And so, all of those crew members that stopped work to support people in the Screen Actors Guild and in the Writers Guild, I think it was more stressful than I even realized during it. I think once we got back to work and you had that collective sigh of relief, I think then I realized, oh, I was really holding a lot of tension because it was scary and it went on for a long time because we actually stopped when the writer's strike began, and then the Screen Actors Guild went on strike, and so it was
Mhm.
like it just felt like, will this ever end? We're dealing with a very new Hollywood than I think we ever had in previous strikes.
You're also in a precarious position because you're a member, you're also management in a sense, you're the showrunner. That
Yes.
that had to be very difficult to walk that tightrope.
I think it was most difficult because of the people that rely on a paycheck that work on the show. You know, in terms of being, a showrunner, we could not make the show if we weren't writing and obviously acting. I mean, actors literally, there's no way for them to work, but there wasn't really a way for us to make the show the way we wanted to if we couldn't continue to write actively while we made it. Because, in comedy, it just feels like you have to be punching things up, trying new jokes, making sure that it works because, comedy is ephemeral, it's fluid, it's very much more alive. So from a management standpoint, I felt very confident in our decision to stop work, but also, yeah, it was complicated because of all the people that work with us and make the show with us.
Couple more things. You, Paul W. Downs, you at your core, are you an actor? Are you a writer? Are you a stand-up? Are you an improv guy? At your core, what do you feel you are?
I wonder if comedian is the best way to say it because it feels like comedians can write and perform in equal measure. I think of like the people that like growing up, I don't know if Robin Williams would have considered himself a comedian more so than an actor, but Robin Williams was also a writer, whether it was him doing
Absolutely.
stand-up or improvising or, just changing what he was doing in a script. I feel like he was as much a writer as he was an actor. So if he would call himself a comedian, I would like to do that too. I think that's the way to encompass it because they really do go so hand in hand. Though I will say, I've always thought of myself as a performer, and performing is the thing that is the reason I write in a way. Yes, I love writing for the people, and that feels great, but it's also a way for me to get to perform.
Would you consider doing a stand-up routine? Like Hannah's did that HBO special, goes on the road sometimes. Would you do that?
Yes.
That intrigue you?
I would love to do that. That's the thing that, like Gene, I'm very much like, what would it have been like had I not done improv and sketch when I first moved to New York? What if I had just pursued stand up? Because I did do stand up. I found it a little bit isolating. I liked in improv and in sketch that you were working with people. And I've still continued to do stand up because I do love doing it, but the amount of dedication it takes to work and hone your material, like Hannah would finish a 16-hour day and then go do stand up.
That's amazing.
It-
Amazing.
It's amazing. It's an amazing work ethic. And I remember doing stand up in LA. I went to an open mic once, and Maria Bamford was on the open mic. And I'm like, wow, Maria Bamford's still workshopping material. It just takes such dedication to continue to work that muscle that while I'm show running and while I'm doing all of these things, writing, producing, directing, and acting, I just haven't had the time. But I would love to do that. I would love to have a special. That'd be great.
On the note of stretching your muscles, because Jean is also very, very, accomplished dramatic actress. Does that enter into your mind? Would you take a dramatic role if you could?
I would like to, yes. I like the moments on the show where all of us get to stretch and show different gears. And Meg and I both got to do that more this season. And yeah, I would love to do that. The
And
truth is, I would actually maybe feel more comfortable doing that, even though I am a comedian and I like doing comedy. There's something about, I don't know, there's something about, especially if I'm in someone else's work, that I'd be like, great, this isn't my forte. You direct me, tell me what to do, give me the line. I think it would be exciting.
which, in your estimation, is more difficult, comedy or drama?
Oof.
Can a good comedic actor do drama? On the other hand, can a good dramatic actor do comedy?
I think they're both really hard. There are some people I think that are so liquid funny that they try and do something dramatic and it's still somehow funny. Some people are just, and then there are some people that are amazing dramatic actors, and if you try to get them to be funny, it's just a glove that doesn't fit, it just doesn't work. But I do think oftentimes if you're really good at one, you're probably really good at the other. I mean, you look at, again, Robin Williams is a great example. Let's just keep using this
He
as the
really is.
like somebody who could do comedy so brilliantly, but then do dramatic work so well, and also often in equal measure. I mean, I think, you watch Mrs. Doubtfire, which is like such a, in some ways, broad premise and like farcical in many moments. There's the moment in the courtroom at the end where he's losing his kids, and he is heartbreakingly good, and it's
You
so
bet.
dramatic. And those, I think, like in a way, that's something that we wanted to do when we pitch tax was make something that wasn't a tone we saw very much anymore, which was something hard, funny, a comedy forward comedy, but also that had heart, that had moments that were teary too.
And one more question. I wouldn't have asked this, and I think you, Robin Williams. I wouldn't have asked this to him, but I will to you
Mm.
because of Lucia. Do you guys on the mogul side, on the business side, on the do you guys think of moving ahead? The Lucy Ricky, the Desi Arnaz type of creating a company, a really big company that moves ahead. Does that? I'm going to guess Lucia's into that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But she is
Yeah.
probably more ambitious even than I am. But she, when we first started working together, we would make these, digital shorts, and we were like, well, what's our name? Like the two of us when we make things, and we called ourselves Polly which was an
Holly
homage to
Lou.
Desilu.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we've always had, sort of dreams and aspirations of having Polly be a Desilu and be able to make and produce other shows and movies and,
That would not
in
surprise
their
me.
footsteps.
That's why I ask you that. That would not surprise me. Finally, do you anything beyond hacks that on your side that we should know about? Tell me if there's a besides the Emmys are coming up, which we wish you a lot of luck in. But
Thank you.
any projects to know right now that you
We have a bunch of irons in the fire. We have a bunch of things in various states of development right now, none of which are at a point where I can probably talk about them,
discuss?
but we're hoping to do something soon. We're trying to set that up so that, we can hit the
Again,
ground
I'm
running.
always worried about that team of attorneys coming in and plucking you right out of a room. You can't say that, Paul. I
Gotta watch out.
That's right. Um, season four is coming. When is it coming?
We start shooting in September, so probably it'll air in the spring. It'll air sometime in early
Sometime
spring.
in the springs, and it is as they say. It is. This is my. This is my. And I don't do reviews, but my 2 cents. It is binge worthy. You just go through that like popcorn, peanuts, and potato chips. It really is a
Thank you.
worthy
Thank you.
show. I thank you, Paul, for taking time out. Look forward to talking with you again as the next season comes out. Continued success and on the HBO Max platform. It's Hacks. It's Paul W. Downs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Russ.